I'm very pleased to welcome Minister Al-Kawari, Minister of Finance of Qatar. He has been Minister of Finance since 2021. Before that, he had a long and successful career. His previous job before being Minister of Finance was Minister of Economy and Trade. And of course, we all have still in mind the beautiful moments of the World Cup. And we are here in Morocco, who also is going to organize the World Cup with Spain and Portugal. Therefore, there are a lot of linkages between what you have done and what others are preparing. But it's not only that. I think Qatar is playing in the world of energy an important role, but also in the world of international developments. And those are the things that we would like to focus our discussion today with His Excellency, the Minister. Let me start, Mr. Minister, by back to the World Cup. It was a success story. It's a huge organization. Everybody who participated went after the World Cup with very nice memories, a lot of preparation to reach that. But usually what is interesting also to look at is what happens after. How you managed the post-World Cup moment. The World Cup brought with it a lot of investment, transformation. But how do you see the economy after the World Cup? How also, as Minister of Finance, the fiscal issues that usually could emerge after a big event like that?
Okay. Thank you, Jihad. First of all, I'm very pleased to be with you today, in the Governor Talks. It's a great privilege for me to join you, in today's event. It's my first participation in the Governor Talks, and always, we appreciate the relationship with the IMF, with Kristalina, yourself, and the team. It's a great relationship. Also, I'm very pleased to be here, in Morocco. I would like to pass my greatest thanks and appreciation and gratitude for the Kingdom of Morocco for their hospitality and the receiving of the guests. It's a big event, huge event. It's coming in a very special moment, especially after the, devastating earthquake, which we pass our condolences, for the losses of the earthquake. And I'm so happy to see that, they are coming out of it very quickly and, being ready for such a big event. So we're pleased to be here today. Always, we receive this question, like, what's next? And what's after the World Cup? And, everything is going to stop after the World Cup. World Cup was a very important mega event for Qatar, for the image of Qatar, for the region, and something really exceptional and very important. Let me take you one step before the World Cup. Qatar is in a journey, is in a diversification journey, in a Qatar Vision 2030 journey, which is something we started many years ago, which is part of our diversification effort to use the oil and gas revenues to diversify the economy and invest in other sectors, invest in the human capital, and build a diversified economy, not fully dependent on the oil and gas revenues. And as part of that journey, there are so many sectors we've been focusing on. And we had a huge investment plans, as part of our diversification plans, infrastructure, logistics, education, health. And what happened, when we were honored to receive, to host the World Cup, this helped us to accelerate our plans, and accelerate certain plans, especially in the area of infrastructure, in the area of logistics. We built, a sophisticated road system, the metro system, the underground system and this came ahead of the planned time because we have an event. And when you have such a big event, all the efforts, all the attention, goes toward that event. So it really helped us to accelerate in one side. And also it helped us, to put us in the road in terms of like a brand and, exposure in terms of like, our businesses. This is going to help us to leverage for the next steps. Our next steps, for diversification, really to focus in the economy. Economy is going to be our priority in terms of diversification. And excuse me, I need to shut this one off. So, we're going to be focusing in the economy, in the diversification of the economy, enabling other sectors. We're going to be focusing in tourism, logistics, manufacturing, and we already have the foundation for this, which, as I said, it was accelerated with the World Cup, preparation. And we're going to see this even, affecting our fiscal approach, too. So because we see more of the spend and the investment was in the, in the building, in the bricks and mortar. Now we're going to see more spending in the economic, diversification activities. As we speak now, we are putting the final touches in our National Development Strategy 3. In order to achieve the 2030 vision, we have built, phases to how to reach that. So we had NDS 1, and then NDS 2, which, 2018, 2022. And we have now NDS 3, which will take us from 24 until, we reach the 2030. And along with that, there are going to be certain activities, or focus activities, within the plan itself. As I said, focusing in diversified sectors, continue to use, the ample, revenues we are getting from the oil and gas to diversify and invest in the human capital, which is going to be the main driver for achieving the future goals. Investing on the R&D, this is one of the areas, and also enabling the private sector. I think one of the most important things to achieve the goals really to have a very strong private sector who can drive the economy and less involvement for the government, and the government to focus in mainly to become only a regulating body and enabling body, but operations, investments, and this is what our plans is. At the same time also, as you know, Qatar is a big player when it comes to the energy business, and we are the largest exporter of LNG in the world. And what we have seen, now in the last 2-3 years, because of the issues of, lack of supplies in the energy and the huge spike in the demand, especially after COVID, and let alone also the Russian-Ukraine conflict, this has helped, to really, push the demand high for the energy. And Qatar is as a responsible, energy provider, will be investing in expanding our facilities in the LNG. We truly believe the LNG is the transit energy toward net zero and toward renewables as we go along. So it's going to be a very important tool to reach that one. And as a responsible, energy producer, we have to really help to have the right supplies, where we can manage the prices and manage, the spike in the demand. So we are expanding our facilities by 65%, in 5 years. By 2027, we're going to reach 126 million tons per annum in terms of LNG production. And this requires an investment, huge investment, to reach that stage. So these are really the plans, and this is the continuation. And we'll continue, as I say, our diversification journey. And of course, 2030 is one stop. We're going to be building, visions beyond that. It's very important for us, really to use, as I say, the fiscal. We had a very good fiscal surplus last year, almost, $29 billion. This year, the first half, around $8 billion of surplus. We are using these surpluses, to enhance the country reserves. In the same time, also to invest in the QIA, where Qatar Investment Authority, to build equality for generations to come.
Mr. Minister, I would like to ask you a bit more on the National Development Strategy. But before getting there, you had to prepare the World Cup, while also you had to deal with all the issues related to COVID. And I know that certain number of important reforms, including at the fiscal side, were introduced at that time. How did you do it? How you managed one of the most challenging crises and at the same time kept the preparation for an event like the COP,
Yes.
like the COP, yeah.
Well, COVID was, an international big event, and that affected the world, and we're still, suffering by way or another from the impact of COVID. We had to do whatever the others have to do, but I think the issue is really putting the priorities in place and to understand what things to tackle first. So we had the health aspects, I think, which came at the forefront, in terms of like tackling and making sure like the spread and everything, and to ensure the health system is sufficient enough with capacity, with with capabilities to deal with the situation. I think this is the most important thing in the fight for COVID. Then, we had to worry about supply chain, we have to worry about food, we have to worry about other issues, we have to do. And we really, as a government, we formed, a cell, for COVID, and it was meeting every day. We had to really focus on this one. Yet, we have to also, think about our commitments, like World Cup. World Cup is a date you cannot change, you cannot move over, cannot say, sorry, this is COVID, give me one more year or something. So we had really, two tracks, tackling the tragic and the consequences of the tragic, COVID, and at the same time making sure the plans are executed as it should. So this is one thing, and I can speak in my fiscal space. We have done, as you mentioned, Jihad. During that time, we built a medium-term fiscal policy framework. And the idea here, it's very difficult when you have, an economy, especially, dependent on oil and gas, because these prices goes up and goes down, and then you cannot just say, when it goes up, let's be generous and spend all over the place, and when it's, down, then let's, hold and let's start to doing cuts. So the idea behind, fiscal policy framework is really to build a longer view, on the economy and the revenues and the expenditure of the government, and try to build a discipline, around this spend. So, and to agree what to do in the cases of surpluses and deficits. Whenever there is a deficit, whether it's temporary or whether it's a long-lasting one, or a surplus, whether it's a temporary, or how to deal with it. And this has really helped us. This is now the third year since we built the fiscal policy framework, and it's really helping us to put the ceilings and to put the views, and yet to divert the investment to the right places.
Thank you very much. You mentioned the National Development Strategy. This is something that you have started more than 10 years ago, and it is a bit providing you with a framework, with guidance. What could you tell us about the priorities for the next NDS round, 2030? What are now with the world that is changing fast, where fragmentation is prevailing, where also you are trying to diversify outside the oil and gas sector that you are also still expanding? What are the priorities, and how do you see, based on the previous rounds of NDSs, the lessons learned that would be useful for you in the 2031?
Yes. The NDSs, they are really, 4 years plans. It's being, renewed every 4 years. So to reach the conclusion, to reach the 2030 vision. So, when you have a long shot goals, like 2030, you need really to have interim, plans to reach that one. So what we have done in the past, and what we have seen, the economy in the last 10 years have been driven, the growth of the economy has been driven by the non-hydrocarbon sector, until, despite, the hydrocarbon was performing well, still the non-hydrocarbon was responsible for the real GDP growth, in the Qatar economy. And we need to continue the journey, we need to make sure this continues. How we can do that is really by focusing on the right sectors and to leverage in Qatar capabilities. We mentioned about the World Cup and the infrastructure. So the sectors we're going to be focusing on is mainly logistics. As you know, Qatar has the best one of the best airports in the world, the best ports in the world, road system, underground system, transportation system, state-of-the-art, storage facilities. And recently we have built a very sophisticated free zone area, also connecting the port with the airport. So we are in a position really to push very hard in the logistics sector. Tourism is going to be very important. And tourism, as you know, I mean, whoever experienced, the World Cup in Qatar have seen, how sophisticated the hospitality sector, the entertainment sector, resorts, and, the location for Qatar, and the access also with the Qatar Airways, network. So tourism is going to be one of the sectors. Manufacturing, of course, being a large energy producers, you have a leverage, where we can have the downstream industries, and we believe like this is something, in the petrochemicals, as well as the clean, the clean supplies or the clean, feedstocks. Recently, Qatar has, announced building the largest blue ammonia, factory in the world, as part of our plan. So manufacturing is going to be very important also for driving, and we know manufacturing gives an excellent GDP multiples, when you go for, the expansion. So we're going to be focusing, but by doing this, we have to think about the enabling sectors, which is the financial sector, is an enabling sector. Technology is an enabling sector, to reach this. So we're going to be investing on technology and innovations, attracting talents, developing talents. These are really the areas we're going to be focusing on. We have the West universities, world universities in Qatar with the education cities, state-of-the-art, from Weill Cornell Medical School to Northwestern universities. These are very well-known names, Weill Cornell, Carnegie Mellon, it's a long list. Health system, Qatar also, investing in like we have the Sidra Research and Development, health system with the Weill Cornell also medical schools. So we have an excellent infrastructure which is going to enabling us for, developing, the diversified economies moving forward, or diversified sectors, if I may say.
Thank you very much. I would say that for those who visited Qatar and visited Qatar Foundation and saw this whole, complex for education, I think it's one of those very interesting achievements over the last 2 decades. How you see, I would like to get your views on the role of Qatar internationally, but before getting there, how do you marry the expansion of the oil and gas sector with the expansion of the non-oil, the other sectors? Because always we have this risk of being a bit pro-cyclical. When oil price goes up, we increase spending, and then the size of the oil and gas sector overshadow the non-oil sector. How you are seeing the way to marry those two priorities?
It's very important. Jihad, the oil and gas is the main stream of revenues, for the country, and it will continue for some time. Let's be very honest about it. But we have to think beyond the oil and gas, area. The oil and gas, spectrum. So we have to think about what's going to happen next week. We know, there are huge efforts in the renewables and the net zeros and everything, and we're going to be reaching a stage where but for the meanwhile, and we know for the next 20 years, which is the transit until we reach that stage, we know, and especially LNG, where Qatar is really very strong at, it's going to be the transit energy, and it's going to be the main energy, and the demand will be, increasing. So very, very important for us. We have to really continue to invest in this area to make sure of course, to supply the world and be energy supplier, a responsible energy supplier, and in the same time also enhance the revenues of the country. So this is one side. But we know for the future, we cannot wait until that stage of oil and gas finishes and then we say, let's think about what we're going to do in terms of diversification. So that will have to start, today, and we'll have to make sure, once, the oil and gas requirements are much less than today, and the revenues will be impacted. We have to make sure there are other sectors that will carry us. And also, it's very important to invest on the future generation, for the future generation through Qatar Investment Authorities. It's very important to build the country reserves. and to use the revenues we have to really build talents and invest in the talents. Human capital is all what it's all about for any country, and without the human capital, you cannot achieve anything. And we believe like building a responsible, reliant citizen is very important, for the future. This is what will carry us forward.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting. Let me move to the Qatar contribution to international development. And I would say we all know the efforts that you do to help. Latest one, the way you helped the population in Afghanistan, for example, providing them with support, shelter, and in certain cases, opportunities. When we visited last year, we saw those young entrepreneurs and the support that you provided them through Qatar Foundation. I would like to, first of all, thank you on behalf of the fund. Yesterday, Qatar made an important contribution to the work of the fund and to help the fund provide its mandate to low-income countries by contributing to our Poverty Reduction and Growth Trust. This is very important because this will allow us to provide subsidized lending, highly subsidized lending to low-income countries. Yesterday, you had a signing ceremony with our managing director. But let me broaden this a bit. How do you see your role into global and international financial scene and international development scene at a time where the world is going more into the opposite direction, being more fragmented? And how you're going to use your skill set in bringing people together for development and financial cooperation internationally?
Thank you, Jad. As you know, Qatar has been very active in in stabilizing the international finances requirement, in the world, and to work toward equalities, between countries, going forward. And we've been doing this through both government efforts and non-government organizations. As you mentioned, Qatar Foundation, they have so many programs: education above all, education for all, educate a child, program, the Celatic, which you mentioned, in building, helping the new generations in the more needed countries to access, funds and access, to build their businesses, so they stay away from trouble. So we have done these programs, and we have many programs also from the other NGOs like the Red Crescent, Qatar Charity programs. At the same time, also the government has been sponsoring many programs through like Qatar Development Fund, which we have where they are active almost in every spot in the world, and they have a huge contribution, to countries in needed, and for population who don't have access to basic requirements, water, shed, and what have you. So we've been doing all of this. In the financial side, as you mentioned, we are so pleased that yesterday we signed with the IMF, contributing 20% of our special drawing rights to allocate to two funds, the BRGT fund as well as the RST, the Resilience and Sustainability Trust. So we're happy to become. We like to work with the multilateral organizations. IMF, for example, they are very good in managing programs, managing and putting the right conditions, and managing the spend and everything. So we feel comfortable sometimes. Sometimes when you go alone, it's very difficult. Although we have many of the what they call bilateral programs we've been doing, but we like to work with the multilateral organizations. They manage their programs better. We work with the IMF. We work with the World Bank also in many programs, whether through Qatar Foundation or through the government and other organizations as well. And also in the same time, as you know, Qatar also has been very active, playing a mediation role, in many conflicts, many places. You mentioned Afghanistan, and Qatar played a huge role in Afghanistan in evacuating, foreigners and international people, making them reach home, when there was a sudden vacuum in terms of like, transport and everything. So, but we've been very active. Also recently, as you know, we worked very closely with the IMF, to help, Argentina to meet their commitment with the IMF with the bridge loan, as you know, which was very essential and very timely, because that helping Argentina to meet their commitment, with the IMF, build the way or pave the way for accessing the next program with the IMF, which without it would have been a big problem. So I mean, we're happy to be always active in these areas and programs. It's part of our both bilateral close relationship with countries. At the same time, we like to work with the multilateral. So Qatar has been really very active in really establishing financial stability, international financial stability, which helps the world economies to continue to be resilient to these factors.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. We thought that it was about Messi, but it's about international financial.
Well, Argentinians are very happy. They won the World Cup and they get to have.
Let me ask
I hope anybody from Argentina here.
The last question before we conclude, because our time is running, and I would like you to be very quick. If you look forward, when the current fragmentation, again, a lot of challenges are now emerging and complicating the full picture. How do you see the role of countries like Qatar, who are, in fact, could play the role of bridges between countries? What are your insights on that?
Well, as I say, I mean, Qatar has been very active, and we have a good relationship with everybody, and this helps us, to be a good mediators in resolving conflicts. As you've seen, the list is long. I mean, we can list so many activities, recent and long-standing, and we continue to play that role because this is a very important and a very responsible role as a nation. To be responsible to bring stability, safety, and bring nations together in conflicts. I think we have played big roles in this, and we'll continue to do that. And this is sometimes you are in a good position to achieve these goals. When you have a good relationship with everybody.
Mr. Minister, I would like to thank you very much for taking the time this morning to participate at our governor's talk. I would like to commend you as Minister of Finance, for the efforts you did in keeping fiscal under control, and not only through all revenues, but also through the various reforms that you have introduced at the Ministry of Finance, and by anchoring your fiscal management into a medium-term framework, while at the same time also providing what is needed in terms of space for the transformation that Qatar is going through. I would like also to thank you for the trust you have in the multilateralism and the good relationship that under your stewardship you, in fact, expanded the relationship between Qatar and the fund. Again, together we would like to thank the authorities of Morocco for an excellent organization of the annual meetings, and we wish them all the best. Mr. Minister, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
شكرا.